So Ophir Laizerovich, I've known Ophir, feels like 15 years. I think you were in a different life at E-Love when we first encountered each other. That would be, yeah, good 15 years ago. So since 2007, Ophir has been helping dating and matchmaking companies get leads through paid acquisition. But since 2012, he's run LeadThink as president and co-founder, helping dating and matchmaking companies, among others, get leads, profitable leads. Also, since 2014, he's run the Relationship Company as president and also co-founder, which owns relationship.com and the likes of findmymatches.com and many more similar sites. So, Ophir, if you would like to share your screen, there's a button down there called share.
There we go. Okay, so I'm going to give you, I don't have a huge amount of time, and there's so many things that we can talk about for hours on end. So let me give you the highlights of what I've done. And that is, I built a business based on purely lead gen for the matchmaking space and the online dating space, is what I originally created. How we did that was we started marketing on Google, Bing. Back then it was Yahoo, which is no longer, it is still around, just a lot different, and a heavy presence also on Facebook. And there are ways to do it that most people don't understand or they don't even realize is how things work. So I will talk briefly about that. And then any other questions you have about this, please let me know. On top of that, from a lead perspective, just so you guys understand what we do, we're delivering anywhere from 10 to 20,000 leads a day with all the marketing that we do. And we're doing it here in the US primarily. We're also in Canada and Australia. We were in the UK for a while up until they changed their laws with the EU, and now we're looking at going back in. But again, US is still one of our primary markets. And let me start by showing you guys a little bit about what we've done and how we do it. And then I'll even show you some landing page items that we do, and that will help you get a full understanding of how and why we do what we do. So here, we're going to go into Google search ads. We'll talk about that first. So this is giving you an example of the kind of ads that we're running. Now, most of you are going to end up running it to a brand that you're wanting to build. Okay. The challenge with running brands, especially when you're doing it from a paid marketing side, is the people need to know your brand. That's item number one. But in terms of getting that to really work, you're going to have to fight with everybody else for all the different ads that you're going to create. So what we did was we created off-brand style domains, but also our ads as well. So Match Seniors is actually one of our oldest domains that we use with. And yes, it does target 50-year-olds and above. But you can see here that we tried to change how the ads were working. We weren't trying to target them about our brand and what we're selling. What we did was we changed the dynamic to actually talk about what is their pain point. And that's what we went after, was trying to figure out, hey, if you're single, you want to try to find somebody else that's close to your age or whatever. We've tried so many different variations. And plus, these ads are a little bit older, but it was still the same concept. We had to change the paradigm on how people were looking at ads. So we targeted pain points. Now, with new things on Google that everybody does need to know about, is that Google did change also how they work with dating, for one, and with matchmaking, to be very honest. You have to get approved, unfortunately, now on Google as well. So that's item number one. Are there ways to get approval? Yes, you do have to go through the process. It's not a huge painstaking way to do it, but you do have to do it. And if there's anything I could even do to help, I would love to help. It's just the challenge is they do require you to get approval. Second is credit card billing. Apparently, Google did away with that. You can't do credit card billing anymore. You have to do invoice billing. So that also changes the paradigm on how much people can actually invest into their spending. For us, spending the amounts that we were doing up to $1 million a month, it's a big invoice to get at the end of the month. So we had to pull back a little bit, but then now we're right back into it, and we're spending probably about $30,000 to $40,000. No, we're about $30,000 to $40,000 a day easily, and we're building it back up. So that was the only reason why we slowed down a little bit, was just because we had to go through invoice billing versus credit card billing, but we're getting there. The point is, though, with the marketing that we do, you have to take a look at your ads and start understanding. So are you going to do what's also called ROAS bidding versus TCPA bidding? And all that changes the dynamic of how you work with Google. If you're going to look at certain keywords to go after, one of the biggest things I could tell you to do is, if you're going to go after Matchmaking, if you're in the local market, it's one thing. If you're going to go after online dating, it's another. Going into online dating and targeting those keywords, it's expensive and it can get very expensive very quickly. The way that we started tackling this, and I'm going back 12, 13 years now, sorry, 14 years, that's how long we've been in business. What we've done is we went after the longer tail keywords, built a baseline from that, and then kept on increasing that over time and then going after the primary keywords. So by doing that, we were able to get all the ones that most people don't compete in. They end up using that to end up building their entire program together to where by the time you look at the main keywords of like online dating and matchmaking or local matchmaking, any of those, you now have a history in your account that'll help you get to those keywords a lot better. So that's one thing I will say that will help you with the Google side. The display side is actually, it's not just display now. They've, and I know this is a little bit older, but they've also added demand gen, which allows you to use different creative, different imagery. We've done testing on how, I hate saying it, but how risque you can get certain women, but also on the men's side, how much you have to put into it. Funny enough as it is, women do like men in uniforms. So you do want to try that out. When it comes to the women, it also depends on how they look, what position they're in. And Facebook and Google are very different with how much they're allowing in the space, but also how much are they stopping you from using certain words now too. So you have to pay attention to that. So I would definitely read the guidelines that Google has, what you can and cannot do, especially when you start looking at display, the demand gen side, and see how you're targeting there. Another thing that you do need to look at, especially with Google, specifically with Google, your website, how fast your website loads up. That will change how well you can lower your cost. So if your website's loading up in good time frame, if you're where you're sending the users, right? How much information is on the page, all that kind of all that stuff will also affect your costs that you run into. And then of course the ads. I'm sorry, in the ads and what you're putting in the ads themselves. Nowadays, writing something like single and try senior dating, you have to do a little bit more now. You have to actually add in certain, you have to add them into your keywords of your ads. So if somebody's doing a search of meeting seniors or online seniors or dating, whatever it is, there's now ways in the Google ads that you actually add that into your ad itself, whatever search term that they used. So that's something that will help lower your cost by using those keywords and not just putting in what you want to say in your ads. And then on top of that, we're working on putting that into the website itself. Now, back in the day, and I'm going to date myself here a little bit and how much I've done advertising on Google. I'm talking about pretty much about 15 years ago when you would do this, it was called keyword stuffing. And people would put it at the bottom of the site. You couldn't read it, you couldn't see it unless you highlighted over it, and then it would be a part of the website. And so Google would let you say, hey, you've got the keyword on your site. But that's gone away and you can't really do it now that same way. They've gotten way more sophisticated, especially with AI coming into the mix. Now you have to have content on your site that will attract the keyword that you're using or the person's using. And so there's some new technologies out there that we're in the midst of looking into and starting to test out where we can actually add the keywords that the users are putting in into the actual site. And that will actually also help you lower your cost. So you have to look at what's your cost of getting the lead in the door, getting the person to actually submit their information, and also, you know, how much it costs you to actually get that person. And over time, you'll start seeing the more I can lower my costs by adding in the keywords, putting that into the actual ad itself, on the website itself. And if it's in the domain itself, it could also help out as well. All that will help lowering your cost and getting people to actually click on the ads. Okay. All right. So that's on Google. Now we're going to go on to Facebook ads. So these are actually these 4 ads. I wanted to give you guys an actual taste of Facebook. Facebook is a different animal than Google. Okay. On Facebook, most people also think that they need to do branding. And I'm talking about instead of doing, Scott, I'm going to put you out there like Vita matchmaking. When you do that and you just do the branding, the people have to know who your brand is. When I've talked to many other marketers, like even with Match, and I've talked to Spark and all the other brands that are out there, and I started looking at all of what they do with their Facebook pages and their business and everything. The point of fact is that people need to know your brand. Unfortunately, if you're up and coming and you're first starting out and everything, no one's going to know your brand. So how do you get them to actually start working with you? So that's where we started doing things very differently. And so if you look at the pages that are in here, you'll see that the page I started working with is dating for 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond, single in your 30s. These are pages we actually built. Now, the pages aren't built for people to keep coming back to the page. That's not what it is. If you're building a brand, that's where you want them to go to. But for this, it's for lead gen. This is so people will actually come to our website. That's what we're using all of these for. Okay. And if there's different ads here, we've got carousel ads, we've got just static image ads, and then we've got also video. We're testing out all of them, and we're constantly testing out different imagery. What does Facebook system like? What do the actual people who click on the ads like? Because there are two different metrics here. There's one where Facebook will actually think that the image you have is a better image and it's going to give you more opportunity. And this is stuff that I actually learned from Facebook specifically. I was actually at their headquarters going through a training that they had to understand what is it that they do? How does their algorithm really work? And what they were telling us was 57% of all the every ad that they get submitted into their system is based on the image. So their algorithm is going to look first and foremost at your image. Okay. Then it takes into consideration text and what you're doing, page, what's at the bottom, the headline, and also the description that you're going to use in each of your ads. All that comes into it, but if more than 50% of what their algorithm is going to pick up on is the image itself, that's the first thing you have to test out. Now, with Facebook, unlike what we did on the Google side with Facebook, people love selfies. And actually, Facebook's algorithm loves selfies. So I would say that if you can use images where you've got a person who's taking a picture of in a selfie style like this, it works really well. It does work in your favor. We've tested out various styles. We got down to the nitty gritty of hair color to curly hair versus not for the men. What are they wearing? What position are they in? What's their background? All of this information that you're putting into the images is vital. Okay, that's how you're going to be able to test out which images really work. And then, of course, also the call to action, whether we use the term learn more or sign up, that's also something that has very much so changed. Like 2 years ago, sign up is all we used because every time we did learn more or subscribe or anything else, people weren't clicking on it as much. Now it's actually kind of shifted. People want to learn more. So they're using a different call to action more, and it's converting better for us than it was before. So that's the other stuff that you have to put into your thought process of what you're going to do. Now, some tricks of the trade that I'm gonna show you here is also, why do carousel ads work? One of the things that we started testing out was in simple format. Carousel ads, normally we would just have like different images, and then we would just say, hey, if you like this person, click here, something to that effect. But what we started also doing was, like it says here, tap to browse ladies' age. It's actually cut off here, but what we would say is women in their 40s, women in their 40s. Then we did another one, women in their 50s, another one, women in their 60s. And interestingly enough, people were actually swiping, depending on their age, they would swipe and select the image. And so that's another angle you do have to look at is what are people going to do? What are they going to click on to come into my site? That's the biggest thing. And if the users are going to do that, hey, we'll put out more and more of these kind of styles. Now we're doing a little bit differently where in Facebook, we're actively setting up campaigns and ad sets to where one ad set will target only 30 to 39-year-olds. Another one will target 40 to 49-year-olds. That way they're not competing with each other, but also we can start analyzing the different images that we use and see which image works for that audience. So on a 30 to 39-year-old audience, I probably wouldn't use this woman over here because she's older, right? So unless the audience is going to somebody who's older, the men who like women who's older, okay, fine, but that's not the norm. And we've tested that out. So that's something to also consider. If you're going to build out all these different ads on Facebook, you can do it, set up one for 30-year-olds and above and stuff like that. The problem you run into is you'll never 100% know which ad or image that they like is best. And plus it doesn't give you as much control. The one thing that we don't like to do from my business is we don't like to give Google or Facebook all the control. That's literally the pitfall of a lot of the advertising that everybody does. They let Facebook and Google say, oh, you want to use this Advantage Plus, or Google tells you, hey, set it up on ROAS and let us figure it out for you. We're so sophisticated in everything. The problem that we have found is that both Facebook and Google will then take that information and give you the lowest quality click you can get. It happens every single time. So that's why we actually target, like with Facebook, we can do it a lot easier than we can with Google, because Google doesn't allow you to select on search specifically. It doesn't allow you to select between mobile Android and mobile iOS, but it does let you go after all of mobile. So there is a way to give that information back to Google as to which converted, and then eventually it will change the dynamic to where it'll probably go more into iOS versus Android. With Facebook, we can actually target iOS versus Android, which helps out. On Google, Demand Gen does allow you to select iOS only or Android only and create a mix if you want. But with Facebook, we do go one way versus the other, because the Android traffic on Facebook doesn't always work as well for the clients. So we focus on iOS. We also do desktop. Funny enough as it is, desktop still works with the older audience specifically. But we do also do Android, but it's not as big as iOS because the people don't convert as well on the back end. So that's why we target more iOS than anything. So yeah, this gives you an understanding. Here's the funny thing about video. We've been doing video. I wanted to talk about that for a minute. Is video we've done for a long time. Actually, for the last 5 years, we've been off and on testing video ads. The one thing about video ads, and Facebook will tell you need to do video is the only way to go. Not really, especially in dating. Video ads can work, but the challenge with it is how fast do you have to cycle through them? Meaning, how many of these kind of ads do you have to put out there to actually get somebody to click in, but also how often before they basically get stale and it doesn't get as much effectiveness? Because everybody ran to do video ads. We actually didn't run to do video ads. There's several people I know that have been doing it for 10 years now. We didn't, because when it came to video ads, the other problem is most people are saying to go after what they call UGC, which is user generated content. In dating, not too many people like to do user generated content, meaning you have an influencer or you have somebody who's actually talking about the product who has a lot of followers. A lot of them don't want to touch dating, because the challenge with dating is that the success rate is not that high when it comes to, and what I mean by success rate is what are their ultimate goals, right? Are they looking to date? Are they looking to hook up? Are they looking to actually find somebody to marry? That's a very big difference. So a lot of the user generated content that we've gotten in the past, it'll work for a short amount of time, but then you start looking at the comments, you start seeing what people are saying, and it goes negative very quickly. And that's a big problem. So in order to get through video ads, what we started doing was creating our own kind of the one that you're seeing here is a brand new one that we just created. We made it look like a news channel station person is doing it. And when we had them giving their spiel on it, it was just a way to talk about what the product is and what the website is all about, what you're trying to do with it. And that's really what the video was all about. And so we're trying something different. But the funny thing that I wanted to tell you about all of these images and everything that's in here is every one of these is AI made images. Okay. These aren't real people. Okay. And the reason why I say that is from a cost perspective, AI is the better way to go. Okay. We, for a long time, for about 2 to 3 years, we had a photographer taking photos of real people out in LA and all over California. We spent well over $100,000 on getting over 50 to 60,000 photos of men and women in different places, all sorts of different things. The funny part was when we started playing around with AI back then, it was very limited and there wasn't a lot of ways to do it. So we didn't mess with it as much. But over the last 3 years, we've completely shifted to where I actually don't spend money on photos. And it's interesting how that all plays out. It's just everybody asks me, can you tell that this person's AI? I actually have fun with it. I tell people, I show them 3 images, and sometimes I'll show them one that's a real image and then 2 are AI. And 100% of the time, they all fail at choosing which one's which. So the interesting thing that ends up happening is with AI, you have to be specific. And we have to make sure when you do the prompts on it, there's a whole learning style of how to use prompts and also what services to use to create the images. Now, the AI images that we use are both on, and I'll share it here, like the ones that we did on Google search, like these are AI images. Well, not AI, these are actually a little bit older. These were ones that we got off of iStock and Getty Images, and we put them through a system called FaceApp back in the day. And it's still around actually, where you can make a woman or a man look older. Funny enough as it is, the guy in here, actually, when we first took the photo, he was actually like in his 30s. And we used FaceApp to make him look older. So it was funny. But then these, we don't have to do that anymore. We can actually type this into the different platforms and actually say, here's what we're looking for in the background. You can, I know you can't really see it here, but the one that's right here next to this woman, it shows a background of them in a marina. You can do specific places. I actually have used ones where it says that these people are in the Amalfi Coast, various different locations. The point of fact is we're trying to test out the different images to see which one will drive a user to actually want to click. That's the biggest thing. Okay. So then let me go from this to talk about the difference in landing pages and how to set these up. Okay. One of the things I wanted to mention was, as I said, we're a lead gen company, right? We're going to bring leads, users into our site, and based on the information that they bring out, we'll be able to actually show the different steps, but we try to make it as simple as possible. And we've tested this out. Golly, I think we've got over 100 different landers that we've tested out the images, the text, what are the people clicking on? What are they not clicking on? Where are they falling off? For everybody that actually goes through their, everybody who builds your site, you want to make sure that you also build what's called a page funnel report that shows what people are doing as they're going through your funnel. Because what we did was we built that out and actually found out that on the gender and orientation selection, we found out that when we had it just as a drop down, it actually didn't work as well. We got a fraction of the conversions we do now. And actually, you can't see it on here because it's a still image, but the men and the women on both of these, the actual box that says man and woman, are actually pulsating. And so that's something new that we tested out about a year ago, and it all of a sudden gave us like a 10 to 20% lift on conversions, people actually clicking through, going to the next steps. So when you all are building out your pages for your funnel, you need to build a report that shows you where everybody's falling off and what's happening. What are people not doing? Okay. That'll all change how the dynamic works. So yeah, we make it as simple as possible. Man selecting women, whatever, the location, date of birth, email address. This is what we're doing currently for the online dating space. And yes, Harmony here because that's one of our clients. And so this is what they request us to do. The person would select a password, they hit submit here, and it literally moves the person right into their funnel to fill out the rest of it. And this is what we use for online dating right now. Okay, this is what actually we've been doing now for pretty much for the last 10 years, strictly for online dating. Now, there's a new version of this that we brought out for matchmaking, and I wanted to share it. I didn't have enough time to put it into the same presentation, so I'm going to move over to this one. And I know this is small. I'm going to make it bigger. Don't worry. So this is on our domain relationship.com. Okay. Same process. Here we still have the gender selection as a drop down. The reason we did it this way is because we actually wanted to see, we took out the orientation question and we were going to see if the drop down now works as well as the buttons do. And we're still testing it out to see if the users nowadays are going to change how they want to work with the site. We asked for zip, postal code, date of birth. Here we started asking for income. And we're about to test this out too. The income, we did do a drop down, but we're seeing that there might be a little bit of an issue there that we might want to change the button around. So we're looking at changing that. Then we have the email address. And then once we get the email address, which by the way, I am going to say this, when people get to the email address, that's where you're going to find one of your biggest fall offs for every site. Doesn't matter how many times you do it. Email address is always one of the hesitancy for a lot of people. So just be mindful of that. There's no easy way to set up a way for people to always put in their email address and make it better because people are always hesitant about giving their personal information. So I'm just letting you know, this will be your biggest fall off on your websites. And then, Scott, giving you a plug here, Vita Select, we actually are working with them. We put in the ability for them to put in first name, last name, and then cell phone number. This is where we do an SMS verification. Then it brings us down to here. We're doing SMS verification. So the people that we're bringing in, we're going to verify that they do use the right code. And then they get to select a date and we set appointments. And that's how we, funny enough as it is, that's how we get paid. Person setting up an appointment and a time and date and everything. And then that's it. That's a thank you for them for the matchmaking side. And that's how our whole process works in a nutshell and what we do. I did notice that there was a couple of questions on the AI side as to which systems we use. Funny enough as it is, we use almost all of them. We have used Midjourney for years. We've used Gemini. There's another one called Mystique. There's another one, I'm trying to remember, there's another new one that just came out. I can't remember the name, but then for video, the cool part is now there's a company called Creatify. I don't know if you guys have heard of them or not, but Creatify also will not only do the same thing with Gemini and everything to create the images, but they'll also create the videos. And that's what we're also in line to work with, is we're trying to come up with new ways to do videos. They got people that are set up for podcasts that you can use their avatars, or you can bring in a photo that you have that works, and then they'll make that photo actually animated and working. It's crazy how much the AI engine can work and create all this stuff, but it's doable. And Creatify is one of the main ones that we use. I hope that at least gives you the flow of what we do and how we do it. I hope I answered give you guys a lot of information on that.